The boardroom fell silent as I plugged the USB drive into the laptop. My brother James sat at the head of the table, his smug smile faltering slightly as our father's voice filled the room. I, Richard Morgan, being of sound mind, hereby declare that upon my death, control of Morgan Industries shall pass to my daughter Elizabeth. My name is Elizabeth Morgan, and 2 weeks ago I buried my father. Today, I was fighting to preserve his legacy from the very person he trusted most, my own brother. Looking at James now, his perfectly tailored suit and manicured appearance betraying nothing of the treachery beneath, I could hardly recognize the brother I grew up with, the one who used to protect me from schoolyard bullies, who taught me to ride a bike, who cheered the loudest at my college graduation. But people change, money changes them even more. The recording continued, Dad's voice strong despite the illness that would take him just months later. James will retain his position as COO, but ultimate control and majority ownership passes to Elizabeth. She has the vision and integrity to lead this company into the future. I watched the color drain from James's face as our father's true wishes became clear to everyone in the room. The board members exchanged glances, some nodding as if pieces of a puzzle were finally falling into place. This is nonsense, James snapped, standing up so abruptly his chair rolled backward. That recording could be doctored. I have legal documents, signed and notarized, clearly stating Dad left me in charge. Forged documents, I corrected quietly, pulling out another file. Would you like me to show the board the proof of that too? 2 months ago, I never would have imagined being in this position. I was content running the company's international division from our London office, expanding into new markets while James handled operations back home in Chicago. We were a team, or so I thought. Then Dad got sick. Pancreatic cancer, aggressive and merciless. In his final months, he began preparing for the transition of power, making his wishes clear to both of us. I would take over as CEO, with James continuing as COO. It was a decision that made sense to everyone except James. I started noticing small things at first. Documents going missing from Dad's home office. Late-night meetings between James and the company's legal team that I wasn't invited to. Dad's personal assistant, Maria, being abruptly fired after 15 years of loyal service. Your brother's been accessing your father's private files, Maria told me during a tearful phone call after her termination. He made me help him copy signatures, Elizabeth. I should have said no, but he threatened to ruin my career. That's when I started recording everything. Every conversation with Dad about the company's future. Every meeting where he detailed his succession plans. I even hired a private investigator to document James' late-night visits to Dad's house when he thought our father was too medicated to notice. The timestamp on this recording is from 3 months ago, one of the board members pointed out, peering at the laptop screen. Why are we just hearing this now? Because I hoped it wouldn't be necessary. I replied, meeting James's furious glare. I wanted to believe my brother would do the right thing. The right thing? James laughed bitterly. You mean let you waltz in and take control of everything I've built? I'm the one who's been here, Liz. I'm the one who's put in the work while you played jet setter in London. Built? I repeated, my voice sharp. You mean like how you built that shell company to siphon off profits from our Asian contracts? Should we talk about that too? That got the board's attention. Several members sat up straighter, while our CFO, Thomas, began frantically flipping through his files. I don't know what you're talking about, James said quickly, but I could see the panic in his eyes. I pulled out another file, bank statements, wire transfers, emails that outlined exactly how James had been skimming millions from the company for years. Dad had discovered it just before he got sick. It was one of the reasons he decided to put me in charge. Dad gave you a chance to make it right, I said softly. He was willing to keep this quiet, let you pay back the money gradually. All you had to do was accept his decision about succession. He was dying. James shouted, his composure finally cracking. He wasn't thinking clearly, and deserved to be in charge. I'm the one who. Who what? I interrupted. Who forged documents, who threatened employees, who stole from his own family? The boardroom erupted into chaos. Board members were shouting questions, legal counsel was frantically making phone calls, and through it all, James stood there, his face a mask of rage and disbelief. You've ruined everything, he hissed at me. No, James, you did that yourself. As security arrived to escort James from the building, I thought about Dad's last coherent conversation with me just days before he passed. "Watch out for your brother, Lizzie," he'd said, using my childhood nickname. "He's not the man we thought he was." How right he'd been. But as I sat there in the boardroom, now empty except for the echo of everything that had just transpired, I realized this was just the beginning. James wouldn't go down without a fight, and he still had allies within the company, people who owed him favors or were complicit in his schemes. I had won this battle, but the war for Morgan Industries was far from over. That evening, as I sat in Dad's old office, my office now, sorting through years of documents and evidence, my phone buzzed with a text from James. "Hope you're happy with yourself. But remember, I know where all the bodies are buried. You really want to play this game?" I stared at the message, feeling a mix of sadness and determination. The brother I knew was truly gone, replaced by someone willing to destroy his own family for power and money. "Game on," I whispered to myself, reaching for the phone to call our lawyers. If James wanted a war, I would give him one. But first, I had a company to run and a father's legacy to protect. The morning after the boardroom confrontation, I arrived at the office to find chaos. Overnight, James had remotely accessed the company's servers and deleted massive amounts of data. Financial records, client contracts, project files spanning decades. "He's trying to cripple us," Thomas, our CFO, explained as we surveyed the damage, but he didn't know about our new backup system. "We can restore everything within hours." I smiled, remembering Dad's insistence on upgrading our cybersecurity last year. Even then, he must have suspected something like this might happen. But James's digital tantrum was just the beginning. By noon, our legal team reported that he'd filed an emergency injunction claiming the recording was fabricated and demanding reinstatement as CEO. "He's also alleging you coerced your father into making those statements while he was heavily medicated," Sandra, our head counsel, informed me. "He's requesting a full forensic analysis of the recording." "Let him," I replied. "I have the original files, metadata intact, plus witnesses who were present during the recording." What worried me more were the calls coming in from our major clients. James had apparently spent the night contacting them, spreading rumors about company instability and suggesting they take their business elsewhere. I spent the next 3 days in nonstop damage control meetings, reassuring clients and partners that Morgan Industries was stable and secure. Most were understanding. They'd known Dad for years and had their own suspicions about James's behavior. But then came the blow I hadn't anticipated. "Elizabeth?" My assistant called from the doorway. "Your mother's here." Mom stood in the reception area, looking exactly as she had at Dad's funeral. Perfectly composed, designer suit, not a hair out of place. But her eyes were cold. "How could you do this to your brother?" she demanded without preamble. I stared at her, momentarily speechless. "Do this to him. Mom, he stole from the company. He forged documents. He tried to steal Dad's legacy. He was protecting it," she snapped. "Your father wasn't thinking clearly at the end. James was just trying to ensure the company stayed in capable hands." "Capable hands," I repeated. "I've doubled our international revenue in 5 years. I've opened new markets, secured major contracts." While gallivanting around Europe, she cut in. "James has been here, handling the day-to-day operations, building relationships, and embezzling millions." I finished. "Did he tell you about that, Mom? About the shell companies, the offshore accounts?" She waved her hand dismissively. "Creative accounting. Every successful business does it." "No, Mom, that's called fraud. And if you don't believe me, I have the proof right here." I reached for the files on my desk. "I don't need to see your proof," she said coldly. "I know my son. He would never." "Never what? Lie? Steal? Threaten people? Because he's done all of that and more." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Your father would be ashamed of you, turning against your own brother like this." The words hit hard, but I kept my voice steady. "No, Mom. Dad knew exactly who James was. That's why he made the decisions he did." After she left, I sat at my desk fighting back tears. I'd expected resistance from James' allies in the company, from board members he cultivated relationships with. But my own mother. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo, clearly taken through a telephoto lens, of me entering my apartment building last night. Another text followed. "Pretty nice place. Be ashamed if something happened to it. So this was his next move. Intimidation. I forwarded the messages to our security team and my lawyers, then made a call I'd been holding off on. Detective Rivera, it's Elizabeth Morgan. I think it's time we have that conversation about my brother's activities. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, police interviews, and constant crisis management. The forensic accountants Dad had quietly hired before his death provided authorities with detailed evidence of James's financial crimes. Former employees came forward with stories of threats and coercion, but James had one last card to play. Turn on the news, Sandra called one morning. Channel 7. There was my brother, looking appropriately somber in a carefully staged interview. My sister's accusations are completely false, he was saying. This is about our father's legacy. He built Morgan Industries from nothing, working alongside our grandfather. The company has always been led by Morgan men. The idea that he would break with tradition, especially while suffering from terminal cancer. I muted the TV, my hands shaking with anger. He was playing the sexism card, appealing to old-school business leaders who still believed women couldn't run major corporations. He scheduled interviews with 3 more stations, Sandra reported, plus a print piece in the Tribune. Let him talk, I said, an idea forming. In fact, let's help him reach an even bigger audience. 2 days later, as James sat down for another TV interview, his phone buzzed with an email from me. The subject line, since we're sharing family history. Attached was a video compilation I'd spent the night assembling, clips of Dad talking about the company's future, security footage of James's late-night office visits, recordings of him threatening employees, and most damaging of all, footage from the company's annual meeting 5 years ago, where he publicly praised my leadership of the international division and supported Dad's decision to groom me for CEO. Your own words, brother, I texted as he stared at his phone in the middle of the interview. Still want to talk about tradition. The interview never aired. Instead that evening, I received a call from James's lawyer. My client is willing to negotiate, he said stiffly. The terms were simple. James would resign from the company, relinquish all claims to leadership, and repay the embezzled funds. In return, we wouldn't press criminal charges. And one more thing, I added. He issues a public statement supporting my leadership and admitting he forged the documents. That's not negotiable, his lawyer started. Then I guess we'll see him in court. 3 days later, James held a press conference. He looked tired, defeated, as he read from a prepared statement. I regret my recent actions and statements regarding Morgan Industries. The documents I presented were not authentic, and my father's true wishes were for my sister Elizabeth to lead the company. She has proven herself more than capable, and I fully support her leadership. Mom refused to speak to me for months after that. Some board members resigned in protest. But slowly, things stabilized. The company's stock price recovered. Clients who had wavered returned. New contracts were signed. A year later, I sat in Dad's old office, my office, looking at his photo on the wall. The company had just posted record profits, largely thanks to expansions I'd initiated years ago. You were right, Dad, I said softly to the photo. About everything. My phone buzzed. A text from James. He was in rehab. Finally getting help for the gambling addiction that had driven much of his embezzlement. Saw the quarterly reports, he wrote. Congratulations. Dad would be proud. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Thanks, hope you're doing well. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But maybe it was a start. Mom called that evening, her first non-holiday call in months. I saw the company's numbers, she said stiffly. Your father, he would have been pleased. Coming from her, it was practically an apology. Thanks, Mom, I replied. That means a lot. As I hung up, I looked again at Dad's photo. The company wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. His legacy was secure, not because it had stayed in male hands, but because it had passed to someone who shared his values and vision. Sometimes protecting a legacy means fighting for it, even against your own family. Dad understood that. Now finally, so did everyone else.